And welcome back in to another new episode of Tribal Council Chat. As always, we are your hosts. My name is Bruce Heller,
My name's Whit Ponell.
and let's dive in. So we have an awesome episode for you guys this week. Um, we will be doing a draft of the best players to never win and maybe players that played the best individual games that didn't win. And this will be a little bit different. In the past, when we've done draft, we've done a discussion segment and then did the draft part quickly at the end. This time, we're just going to be doing the draft as the episode, but doing more discussion after each pick.
Yeah. Should be great.
It should be. So, Brett texted me last night and said I could have the first pick. And so, with my first pick, I am going to be taking one of my favorite players and the player that I believe is the best player to never win overall career wise, and that is Amanda Kimmel.
Certainly someone who easily could have won twice.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a bit, Bruce, where you thought to make this away, what you love about Amanda's game. I mean, you're the Amanda expert on this panel, so feel
Yeah.
free to take it over and I'll probably comment throughout.
What comes to my mind is what Todd said when he joined us, is that she just plays such an incredible game all season and then overthinks it at final right before final tribal preparing and falls apart. That final tribal is really the only weakness in her game. She's excellent at everything else.
You're absolutely right. And like you say, everything else, great social player. She's made great strategic moves. She was part of the move with Eric. She was led the blind side with James. She's won challenges individually.
Yeah, one final immunity both times.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Very
So
impressive player and exactly who I thought you would take at this point.
yeah. And even if you look at her third season where she finished ninth place instead of going all the way to the end, she was started out on a tribe that was kind of a disaster tribe in a way, and
Yeah.
still had even numbers at merge. And JT basically gave the villains merge numbers. If the heroes get numbers in that season, and JT doesn't go home at merge, if one of the villains does, Amanda probably wins that season. She was really the only. Her and JT were the only heroes actually trying to play the game.
Yeah. I would definitely say she's the favorite to win at that point. I think there's a chance that, say, somebody like Rupert wins with no strategy at all, but
Mm-hmm.
um,
There was one strategic thing he did. He put rocks in his pocket. For him, that's strategic.
that is true. But if we're looking at the best gameplay, there's a great argument to be made there that at least if that whole idol kerfuffle doesn't happen, Amanda goes into the merge as the favorite.
Yeah, for sure. And because at that point, Rupert's good socially. He gets along with people, not super strategic. JT was playing hard and playing the game, but was kind of a bonehead. The rest of the heroes were kind of just there.
Yeah.
So JT kind of messed it up for both of them. Rupert and Colby still made it far, but neither one of them were winning. Colby was kind of a weird version of Colby that season. It wasn't like Australian Outback Colby or All Stars Colby.
We just seemed at that point to be, let's say, a little older than he was in Australia when he was as dominant as he played that second season.
Or even in All Stars when he wasn't around very long, but he made enough of a mark. He just kind of seemed annoyed the whole time and seemed like he didn't want to be there a little bit in Heroes versus Villains.
I know it at the game. I know it at the other players. I know it at his brother.
One
Love
of the
that scene.
funniest family visit moments is him yelling at his brother for not tossing water well enough. Whatever. All right, who's your pick?
So like you said, you went with who you think is the best player to never win the game. And also you brought up Todd, which is something that I wanted to comment on because Todd talked about this when he was on with us as well. If you remember, we asked Todd the question. He said what other seasons are his favorite that he's never played on,
Yeah.
and his mind went straight to Survivor of the Amazon.
I
So
knew this is where you were gonna go.
I'm going with Rob Sesternino. In my mind, the best player of all time, one of the first game changers, someone who was probably the first player that came in thinking you could make moves and lie to people and strategize and still win. It wasn't all about just being the nicest person. And went all the way to the end. Really, he was a final immunity win that he lost to Jenna, short of winning the money.
Yeah. This is a great pick. Sesternino in his first season was just incredible and one of the best strategists we had ever seen up to that point. And so I he's in the conversation with best to never win. What holds me back with him is his second appearance. He goes home just so early.
Yeah, it was
And there's really
a
not much
shame.
he could have done about it. Like Raw.
No, there isn't. He came in with that target of being such a good player, and then also it's like I don't know if this was the case, but I almost get the sense of like if Sesternino's mother could have gave him any other name, he might have gone further in All Stars. But
Yeah.
somebody else wanted to prove that they were the best Rob in the game.
Well, yeah, and when that somebody else is the survivor version of the mafia and just
Exactly.
everyone gets killed for any reason. Like that's legitimately the vibe Boston Rob's confessionals give me that season is that he's just
I
a
really
mob boss.
like that comparison because it's funny now that you say that. Because if Rob is the Survivor Mafia, he lasted that way playing that game in every single season up till who stopped him, a police officer.
That's true. And I say that because he even like is sharing one of his strategies in a confessional in All Stars, and he says that's straight out of The Godfather. And it's like
Yeah.
anytime somebody crosses him at all, they go home next. Like whatever he wants goes. If he had just had a tiny bit of jury management instead of ticking off everyone in the worst possible way, he wins that season. But
And if he was thinking about jury management, who knows? Maybe he goes a lot further in more cases.
yeah, true. Hey, he at least made the merge in more cases. Didn't make the jury, but okay. So with my first pick, I took who I believe is the best player to never win. With my second pick, I'm going to take the person that, and to me, this isn't even an opinion, it's objective, that they played the best game that never won because this person actually came closer than anyone ever has without winning, and that's Dom Abate in Ghost Island, who
Wow.
I mean, and obviously these are always subjective, but it's honestly a fact. Like nobody else has tied the vote before, so he actually did come closer than anyone ever has without winning, and played an incredible
Interesting.
game.
Can't agree more with you. Like you say, he went statistically the closest. I mean, I can't believe that you picked anybody other than one name here, so I'm a little shocked. But
Yeah,
no, great pick. Someone who, yeah, was a tiebreaker away from winning the game. We've never seen that since. We probably never will again. The only time we really had a possibility of seeing it was when it was at war, because I mean, everybody was a dominant player on that season. But now we always are getting these zero vote finalists that make it next to impossible to see that scenario play out unless it's a dead split and an even numbered jury.
yeah, and for the record, the name you thought I was gonna go with, I feel like I can get later. I wasn't sure how long I could last without you taking Dom from me. So
Really smart because he was definitely in consideration with one of maybe three names for my next pick. So
yeah,
great move there.
and Ghost Island, not a fantastic season. It was the first season I ever watched, and I was in high school at the time. And my mom said, "Try watching this show with me." And little did she know the monster she was creating. But and so really fun. What a great first season to start on, though, with that jury vote. Him and Wendell
Yeah.
are one of the great duos ever. And so, yeah, he was dominant. The only real person that didn't like him was Chris Noble, who kind of sunk himself at the merge vote. And they're friends in real life now. So
That's interesting. I never knew that.
I think they've hung out together like outside the game since the game. I remember seeing one of them post it.
Oh,
And so, where are you going next?
I just took Sestonino as the first game changer. I'm gonna go with the second game changer, only one season later, and that's fair play.
Oh, that was a good one. He was on my board, but he was like at the bottom of my board, or like if you took more people off my list than I wanted you to. But
Had a not clearly not great second season. I know there was a whole lot of controversy with that, but I mean, same kind of thing as Sestunino. I think if fair play wins, he votes out Sandra in final immunity and wins the money. If Lil takes him, he wins the money. It was just Lil didn't. I don't even think Lil knew that she could beat Sandra. It was just a question of she didn't want to lose to John.
yeah, Lil wasn't beating either of those two.
Oh,
The fact that she even got a jury vote is still crazy to me.
agreed. Seeing that she was voted out on day 9. And that's day 9 in the old 39-day seasons where that's the third person out.
And not only day 9, but at the Outcast twist, and I forget who I heard say this, but it was like someone who was there, gets voted back into the game because they thought she would annoy them on the pre-jury trip. Have you heard that?
Really? Oh, wow. I never heard that story.
So I'm pretty sure I mean, I could be wrong. I've heard that somewhere. I'm pretty sure though, and it wouldn't surprise me.
Funny. Yeah, definitely.
The thing with
Um,
fair play is, like outside the game and online, he seems like a cool guy. He'll interact with fans and comments and stuff, and go back and forth. It's just watching Pearl Islands itself. I just can't stand him and his confessionals. Drives me insane. But he's a good player. He was ahead of his time. If he
oh,
played that same game now, he's not hated by his fellow players near as much. The dead grandma thing to me is still kind of too far and goes beyond the game a little bit. Like I still really don't like that, but
I think it's one of the funniest things that's ever been on Survivor. All these
it's
years later.
it's funny. I don't know. It's kind of a low move, but
Nothing to me will ever match how shocked you are when he cuts to confessional and you hear the line, "My grandma's sitting at home watching Jerry Springer right now."
and Sandra knew it was fake somehow. She was the only one
Yeah.
that didn't just eat it right up.
Well, I think Sandra was just at the point of that game where nothing that came out of John's mouth she was gonna believe.
Yeah, which is a fair way to
John,
act at that point.
yeah, it is. John could have probably convinced Sandra that the sky was green. All he would have had to do is say the sky is blue.
Yeah. And then man, I would have loved to have had fair play on heroes versus villains for the sole purpose of like two of the big rivalries in the history of the show are her and fair play and then her and Russell on heroes versus villains. To have her there with both of them at the same time would have been such great television. And just to see how him and Russell would have interacted with each other.
Right. Maybe
So,
fair play can do the traders someday.
oh gosh, yeah, it seems he did that House of Villains show on E that my
With the
mom and Kevin keep telling me to watch, so I need to find a way to watch it online. But so with my pick, I will go ahead and take my other favorite player, Kelly Wentworth, who three-time player, really only got super close to the end once, finished fourth place. But it was a really great job of playing from the bottom and playing really well. And in her third season, she goes home kind of middle of the post merge phase, but came in as one of four returnees and probably had the biggest target on her of those four and lasted longer than all of the other three. So,
Yeah.
like, for the situation she was in Edge of Extinction, she did okay. Bad placement in her first season in San Juan del Sur, but was doing good till she got on a tribe with her dad who had already made enemies. So
Yeah, it was too bad to see her go pre-merge in that season. Best idol play probably of all time
oh, for
in
sure.
the next one. For the second game. That's she'll always be remembered for those words. Wentworth does not count.
Even
No
though I
matter
love
what she
Caleb,
does in
even though
what?
I love Caleb on 45, but I'm still kind of salty that he broke her record for most votes negated with one. I mean, I guess shot in the dark's not an idol, but close enough.
They're different records, but he definitely broke that part.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one player to break one of your favorite players' records. I'm still waiting for another one.
Yeah, but with the 26-day seasons, that might not be possible.
Nope.
And for those wondering, Amanda holds the record for most consecutive days voted out at 108. And Brett's favorite player, Michelle, has never been voted out in 2 seasons. But the thing is, seasons are only 26 days now. So even if Michelle comes back and goes to the end again, I'm not sure if that would break the number or not.
I would think that it would have. We'll get back on topic in a second, but I would think it would have to be almost a joint record where Michelle could break the most episodes survived, and Amanda would still keep the number of days.
Yeah. The crazy thing with Amanda is Heroes versus Villains is her worst season. She still lasted 30 out of 39 days.
But no, back to Wentworth.
Yeah.
Um, no, and even she played a really good game in Edge of Extinction too. Surprisingly, I don't think you would disagree if I say this. The only mistake Wentworth has really ever made herself is a mistake she made after she was voted out of the game.
Yeah.
And that's telling Chris about Lauren O'Connell's idol.
Yeah. And she was in a good position in Edge of Extinction too. One of her allies, who is a player I still love despite this, War Dog, organizes the votes to take her out. It wasn't
Yeah,
even a bad move. Like his thought process was correct. He
yeah.
just I've said War Dog kind of gives me the same vibe that Tony gets, and War Dog got paranoid and too antsy to make a move. If he makes that same move the next round, it works out so much better for him than it actually did. He's just kind of Walmart Tony, so he gets paranoid and made the move too soon.
Absolutely. So time for my pick, I guess, to go for a third round out of 10. If I was playing against other people in this draft that I didn't know coming in, this pick may have been made higher. I think you and I don't rate this person as highly as many others, but to not have her still on the board in the third round is almost unbelievable. I've got to go with Sui here.
Yeah, that was gonna be my pick, and I do like Suri. And anytime like on fan jury that I call Amanda the best to never win, I get flack for it. But I just feel like Suri gets a little bit overrated in that she's still an incredible player, but there's this notion that she just was screwed over outside of her control every season, and that's really only true in her last season with Game Changers.
Yeah,
But I
I
mean, you look at
agree
her,
with you there. It's tough because she is no question one of the top players to never win the game.
yeah,
I think the reason I took her a bit later and I rank her a bit lower is just because there are a sizable percentage of the fan base who puts her in the top 5 players of all time,
yeah,
which I reserve for winners. I
for sure,
reserve the top like 40 for winners at this point. But um, the moves she's made over the course of the game are impressive. It
yeah.
clearly showed when she won the Traders last year too that she has that strategic element of her game. She was great in Micronesia. I don't believe personally any sort of her being screwed over in any game. I mean, Panama, she lost in fire. We've seen that happen to how many people now? And
Yeah,
it was even a vote. It wasn't a forced fire.
yeah.
Danielle just beat her. That's the game. The whole final two, final three thing, I don't consider a twist. I always say if Jeff walked in and said today we're having final four, we're going to tribal with Natalie included, that would be a twist.
That'd be cool.
But so here, are you gone mute?
No, I'm here.
Okay, great. You kind of for a second. But final two is the original Survivor. I remember being 7 years old watching Richard Hatch and Kelly Wigglesworth debate each other to win that money. So you have, even today, we haven't seen a final two since Kagian. We thought we were getting one in Korong until there was another twist that was kind of out of the norm at that point. But you have to be expecting, if you walk onto Survivor today, that it might be a final two because that's part of the game and that's the history of the game.
It is, and to be fair, the final two in Micronesia, from what I understand, was kind of a switch in plans during the season. That was not the plan all along, but the Medivacs did change that, but that's not on the same level as the Game Changers thing. Overall, Three is an incredible player. Like,
Absolutely.
and she is a super likable personality and player. If Micronesia were a final three, there's a lot
She
of
wins.
people, including Eliza Orland, who was on that jury, that have said they firmly believe she wins in a final three.
Yeah, I agree. I think she does.
And we talked about Ghost Island earlier. I am really curious what the contingency plan was with Micronesia, because that was one vote away from being a tie, and there wasn't a third final three to be a tiebreaker.
Interesting because from what I've heard, Eliza speculated about, do I want to make this a tie?
But and Probst wasn't the showrunner or an EP at the yet, I don't think. But Mark Burnett and CBS had some contingency plan in case that I want to know what that was.
On fire this season.
Because there has to have been one. There's no way they just didn't have it just in case.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I mean, was Tracy Hughes Wolf or Jonathan Penner in the background of Tribal?
gosh, I love Penner. That guy's great.
Yeah.
Not doesn't always make the best gameplay moves, but gosh, he's entertaining. He's good TV. Some of my favorite confessionals.
All right, so your pick next. You have two women and one man. One man.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go to someone here that
Before you go, just so the audience knows, because when I just read that out, you can pick players in any order, but we're drafting tribes to simulate. So at the end, your team will have 5 women and 5 men. But it doesn't matter what order you pick them in.
correct. And I'm going to go with someone that I believe is simultaneously underrated and overrated at the same time, if that makes sense. And here's what I mean is I've seen a lot of fans of this person talk about, oh, they were robbed. They should have won every time they played. They were so good, and I think that's a little overdrawn because they didn't win for a reason. And there's a very obvious reason when I say the name. But I've also seen other parts of the fan base just say this person sucks as a Survivor player and isn't very good. And if that's the case, they wouldn't have made it to the end twice. So the simultaneously overrated and underrated Russell Hantz.
Interesting. I was wondering if you were going there. I had a couple of names in mind. And Russell. I mean, what can I say with that pick? Definitely a game changer. Definitely somebody who is one of the most entertaining television characters and reality stars of all time. People think that when I'm and you made the point earlier when I picked Fair Play that the dead grandma was low. I mean, telling your tribe on day one that you were
Oh yeah.
almost died in Hurricane Katrina and then cutting to confessional and saying, I've never lived in New Orleans for a day in my life.
Oh yeah.
He took that up a level.
Oh, absolutely the same thing. But
Yeah.
I feel like Russell's a little bit better player than Fair Play for whatever reason in my mind.
The other players' socks. Like Russell was there, and I almost wonder, like, he clearly wanted to win. And he was clearly upset that he didn't win. But coming into the game, I wonder, did he really want to win? Or did he want to be the most talked about survivor player of all time? Because there's a
I,
good argument to make that he does hold that title.
he's definitely the most polarizing Survivor player ever. But from a gameplay standpoint, do you agree with what I said that he's kind of overrated and underrated at the same time?
Absolutely. Um, you have to be a good player to get to the end. People may not agree with how he necessarily did it, but if he can get to the end, then he is playing a great game.
Yeah.
At the same time, solely getting to the end isn't the point. The point is to get to the end and get the votes you need to win. And if we want to talk about Boston Rob having bad jury management, Boston
Hmm.
Rob's a jury managing genius compared to this guy.
Oh, that's what I said watching All Stars. I texted you, I'm like, this is Russell. The difference is Rob kind of learned from it. The jury in
Yeah,
22 still didn't like him very much.
yeah.
But the
Um,
other options were Philip and Natalie,
Rob
who were
got
just,
the but Robin 22 got the votes to win, even if the jury didn't like him that much. Whereas Russell had them throw a challenge to get rid of him in the same season.
I think that's just I think Zapatero was going to do that no matter which returnee they got. They didn't want either one of them, which is other than Stephanie Valencia and Ralph, Zapatera as a whole just is a very irritating tribe to me. But
I still wish we got Stephanie Valencia back for second chances.
yeah, but the thing with Russell is the people that are his fans make it where he's a way better player than he was, and the people that can't stand him act like he's way worse than he actually was. And I'm
Yeah.
pretty much the only one in the middle that doesn't love him or hate him. I'm just like, he's a good player, good TV. Seems like a horrible person to spend time on an island with. He'd drive me insane quickly, but I couldn't feel. I feel like neither one of us we couldn't both leave him out of this, so I made the pick.
Makes sense. Yeah, good. I like it.
And so now you are up.
So moving on, I have two males and one female. You just equalized out your gender pairings after 4 rounds. I'm gonna do the same thing. As many of you remember back, what was it like right before we went into 46? We had Steven from Survivor Quotes on today, or a while ago, to talk about Final Tribal with us. That was such a good episode.
Oh yeah, for sure. Love him.
Um, Today he posted a question on the best blindsides to ever happen, to which I responded, and this person liked the tweet that I responded to when I sent it to you. I'm like, shit, I think I gave away one of my draft picks and didn't realize it. I
Yeah.
somehow still got her at this point, and it's Victoria.
She was the next woman on my list too. That's a great pick.
The first player I think in our draft here, if I go down the line, well, Dominic as well. So the first woman that only played the game one time at this point. Hopefully, that's not the case by the end of the show. But in that one game, she was so close to winning. She was pulling strategic moves the whole way through. Like I
Yeah.
said on Twitter today, I think the Aubrey blindside is one of my favorite tribals of all time. Taking out a, at that point, new school CBS kind of hyped up as a like legend of Survivor in the pre-merge with an idol in her pocket. That's impressive.
Also, you're just kind of biased because you don't like Aubrey's fans because of the co wrong reaction. So that helps a little bit.
does help a bit, but I mean, like, I'm glad you said the word fans there because I do think Aubrey is a great player.
Oh, for sure.
She's gone deep into the game twice. But yeah, as I guess within the kind of like Michelle fan community, seeing that happen was a bit of an added boost for our social media and
Yeah.
for those of us in Survivor fan jury who love to rehash the debates of 5 and 10 years ago, today, tomorrow, and every other day online.
So I am going to go off of my list here because you took Victoria, who is going to be my next one. So maybe this is a panic reaction. Maybe it's not. Another one-time player. Victoria was probably the best strategic player on Edge of Extinction. I'm going to go with one of the best social players on Edge of Extinction who seem to
Thought
have
that's
friends.
where you would go.
Somehow slipped my mind when I was making my list, but Lauren O'Connell is going to be my pick here. My favorite one-time player, probably, and seemed to have good relationships and bonds with everyone. I feel like would have had a great chance with the jury. So that's my pick here after. And as soon as
Excellent.
you mentioned that tweet from Steven at Survivor Quotes today, I face palmed because I knew that was going to be your pick and that was going to be my next one. But I feel pretty solid countering that pick with the Lauren pick.
That's excellent. I mean, if there's no Edge of Extinction in that season, one of the two of them win the season, no question.
Yeah.
And assuming like we're going to simulate this, if this was a real season, say we were asked to be captains for casting Lauren and Kelly playing on the same tribe, that would be fun to see again. Seeing how big of a Kelly fan Lauren was when she didn't even know she was going to play with her and saw Kelly come in on the boat. That was such a great opening.
See, now most people in the Survivor community know how tight those two are. So I feel like that would put a target on them, if anything. But
Yeah,
Lauren and Victoria
good, but
would love to see both of them come back. Both great players, best strategic and social players of their season, probably. And also, they're both super pretty, also. So that helps.
and debatably, when you say best of the season, debatably we're even talking best of like that late pre-winners at war era, kind of like from HHH up to Island of the Idols.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like strategy might go to Dom, but overall, that was
Agreed.
a fun little era. Would love to see Lauren and Victoria back. So your next pick is up.
You picked the duo in Kelly and Lauren of a new school duo. I've got to go with an old school duo. So to compliment Rob C, I'm going with Stephen Fishback.
Oh, you did it again. I was gonna take him.
Um,
I should have taken him with my last pick. Oh, dang.
Stephen is one of the two players that I think that if I was to play, I would model my own game after. Brilliant survival strategist. I like the fact that he came in, especially in Game Changers. I think I would play more of his, or not Game Changers, sorry, Second Chance. But they were so close together that you can mix them up.
Yeah.
But I think I would play more of his Game Changers game than his Token Teens game. But if I was to like try to replicate a few different players that I really like, if I got the chance to play, but brilliant strategist, super fan of the game, someone who knows pretty much everything about this show, and would be excellent on this tribe. What do you think about Stephen here? I know you said you were thinking of picking him.
I was gonna take him when I took Lauren, but you took Victoria, who was my next woman. So I kind of made a panic pick, and I probably could have gotten Lauren later. So Fish is an incredible pick. Him and JT on Token Chains is one of the best duos ever. I'm still, every time I think about it, surprised that that was a unanimous jury vote in JT's favor. I thought Fish would get at least one vote there because it seemed to me like he was driving a lot of the strategy and JT was doing the bringing the numbers in with his social game and charms there. So the fact that JT swept the jury still surprises me, but I guess that just goes to show how
Agreed.
important being likable is.
It's true. I would have thought that Steven would have done a bit better. I think if either one of them decides, I know JT won anyway, and he had the necklace at the end. But let's say Steven has the necklace. If either one of them pull off the big move and go against Aaron, it's probably a lot closer. I know Taj says she would have voted for Aaron. It would be fun to see how that would have played out between either JT or Steven versus Aaron at the end.
Yeah, and that final tribal at the end was a dogfight between them also.
It was.
Steven made the mistake of admitting, yeah, I considered taking Aaron. I considered taking Aaron if I would have won. And the reason I say that was a mistake was JT hammered that 2 or 3 times where I never doubted taking you. You might have taken me out and kind of played the sympathy card there. But yeah, that's a great pick. I wish I had made it. And so,
All right, so you have 5 names, as do I. We're into the second half of this draft.
yeah, okay. Hmm. I am going to go with someone that played a really good game and almost won his first season. Went home pre-merge his second season, and then despite not wanting to be there, went pretty late into the game his third season. Australian Outback's Colby Donaldson.
Yeah, we talked a bit about him earlier, but someone who was absolutely dominant in his first game, dominant strategically, dominant physically, was able to benefit off of Tina playing her social game and the two of them working together. Outsmarted Amber and Jerry as to really take control of Ogakor, which was clearly the right move to do. The only thing I would still say, and I know we've hashed this out before, so we don't need to go into it with Colby, is that he did throw the money away, and that I've always held against him in these kind of lists. But I mean, hey, season 2 isn't season 45. So times have changed. What people wanted out of the game was different, and he made the decision he did, and that's his call to make. It's not the one I would do, but
Yeah.
certainly valid from his part.
And it's not objectively not the smartest move from a game perspective, and probably not the move I would have made either, because it seems like Tina would have understood either way. But I honestly do have respect for it, just of that mentality of wanting to stay by your friend and wanting to go up against the best competition. Because you see at the end, when she wins, he's the first person to stand up and start clapping for her. So, not the best game move, but I respect it in a certain way.
Absolutely.
And that's just where it differs from today. Because it's all gameplay now. The personal side of it doesn't get thought about at all.
And then going into Colby's second game, he did went out early, but did well in All Stars.
Yeah.
Certainly was fun to see after that swap and to see him and Jerry stuck on a beach together again. And
Yeah.
she ended up pulling out the win in that, and then to see them play the two of them play again together for the third time in Heroes Villains, where Colby comes fifth and Jerry comes fourth. So he went very far again. It's like Colby hasn't had ever a bad game, even though he hasn't won the game.
And what's funny is heroes versus villains, they weren't necessarily going at each other like they were the first two times, but they certainly weren't playing together either. Like
Yeah.
they didn't see eye to eye. All Stars, I do think, and this is I just finished rewatching it, so I this is just the thought I had watching it. It's fresh on my mind. I feel like he kind of got a little too much into calling the shots each time of getting with Lex and Ethan and wanting to call the shots and be that person. And by doing that, he put a target on himself. Whereas if he had just laid back a little bit, he probably goes a lot deeper into the game.
Agreed. It was neat to see if they were playing together in Heroes Villains. I mean, like, imagine an alternative scenario where rather than taking out the heroes one by one, Colby and Sandra go and work with the two players that they've played with before,
Yeah,
and Russell and Karuti. That would have been fun.
yeah, for sure. And yeah, I like Colby. I honestly don't know, even if he had laid back now that I don't know that he goes that deep into All Stars. Let after winning the last five in a row, individual immunities in Australian Outbacks, Lex was absolutely not letting him get to the individual portion of the game. And on Mogo Mogo, Lex was the one calling all the shots, it seems. So I don't really know what Colby could have done. I just laying back a little bit couldn't have hurt. He did get kind of wanting to be the one in charge, but great player.
Yeah, agreed. My pick. Hmm. It's a couple of names in my mind. Someone who kind of like I said about a second with Colby ago, or a second ago with Colby, didn't never got to the end of the game, but has played multiple times and never had a bad game. This person's gone pretty deep every single time she's played, and that's Andrea Belke.
Oh, that's a good pick. I like that. Really solid.
Andrea started in Redemption Island. We saw her accidentally, not even meaningfully, get on the wrong side of Rome, and we know how that goes, thanks to Matt.
Yeah.
She played a great game in Karamoan. Fans versus favorites too. Went very deep. And then again in Game Changers, where she makes some pretty big moves, but going out just before we get into that end stage of the game, around I think seventh.
Yeah.
She's also someone that I've got to talk to on Zoom. Great person. Um, did a fundraiser that I participated in with her and Michelle, and I think she'd be as, in my opinion, I'm very surprised to see her still here. What are your thoughts?
I think her game gets better each time she plays as she gets a little bit wiser and more mature.
Yeah.
I liked on Game Changers the arc of her and Zeke kind of feeling each other out and wanting to take a shot at each other but not wanting to miss. Which, by the way, is very similar to the arc we get with Zeke in the previous season of Millennials versus Gen X, with him and David gathering troops against each other, also. But, and one thing I will say about Andrea that I love is with her as a juror in Game Changers, because so many times we see someone feel wronged by one of the finalists and they come in and there's no chance they're voting for that person. We see her come in as a juror in Game Changers and say, like, yeah, Sarah, the way you played the game feels kind of gross to me, I believe is the way she phrased it. But you could tell she was still asking questions in a way that she was still trying to figure out her vote. As whatever happened between her and Sarah, she wasn't letting that stop her from still considering voting for her. I don't remember how she voted, but
Find out pretty quickly.
yeah, I can pull it up on Wikipedia. What are your thoughts, though?
Yeah, I completely agree. That was that final I'm so torn on because at one end it's the like downfall of where Final Tribal Council, in my mind, just gets to be a lot worse.
Andrea
Andrea
did vote
voted
for
for
Sarah.
Lucina. Yeah.
Which, and you hear her say multiple times, the way you played the game felt gross, felt wrong to me, and she still ended up voting for her. It's not
Exactly.
Big Tom and All Stars. Here, shake my hand. No, don't be stupid. And then going back to his seat.
Yeah. Agreed. But yeah, at the same time, despite me not being a fan of the format and how final changed, those juries was one of the best juries in my mind of all time.
Yeah. And so with my next pick,
We have 4 picks left. Just so you know, you are equal in men and women, and I am also equal at 3-3. So 2 men, 2 women left for each of us, and then we'll go into a line blindside first boot.
okay, with my next pick, I'm going to go with someone who played twice and she made it to the end and didn't win her second time, lost on a unanimous vote, and made it pretty far into the game her first time. I don't remember the exact placement, but not only from St. Louis, owns the Chick-fil-A in the next town over from me. So North County represent. Tasha Fox is joining my team. And yes, the St. Louis part is absolutely part of this, but she's also just an incredible player.
Yeah, great pick. She's somebody that I highly considered was after the 3 names that I've gone with. She was high up on my draft board, so you grabbed her before I could. Yeah,
Good.
great player. Goes very far in second chances. She also played a great game in Cagayan when you factor in the fact that Tony Vlachos was on that season. And I mean, everyone is a step behind Tony, but if if Tony doesn't have a super idol, there's a good case to be made that Tasha's got just as good of a chance as say a Lulu or Spencer to win that game.
Yeah. And a better chance than Cass, because if you watch the Ponderosa video, Cass was not winning no matter who she sat next to.
All Spencer said that back at Tribal, and he wasn't wrong.
Yeah. And so, and the thing with Tasha is her second season on Second Chances. We've seen so many returnee seasons where people get targeted for being either having been close before or getting close quickly. Her and Spencer were each other's top ally on Kagion. They go to the end together and Second Chances, and everyone thought they were both like Tasha and Jeremy and then Spencer and Jeremy. And she sits there and goes, no, nobody knew this. My relationship with Spencer is 10 times closer than my relationship with Jeremy. And she was able to somehow hide that. And everyone thought Jeremy was who everyone was closest to. Shout out to Jeremy, though, because I love him. He's one of my favorite winners. But
Shout out to Jeremy. Unfortunately, he can't be in this draft because he won, but
yes, but
that's the
had he
list of
not won,
players that
his
you
game
want to
in,
be in.
had he not won Second Chances, his game in San Juan del Sur would have gotten him picked by me already in this draft. So,
Yeah, no question.
but yeah, so Tasha Fox is my pick here. Just incredibly underrated player. So glad to snatch her up.
Okay. I'm going to take somebody here who only played the game once, who got votes to win, who maybe didn't win because he didn't play as good of a game as the winner. But I think the opinion may have changed today with some outside the game content. And this person is also one of my favorite Hollywood stars of all time, Mike White.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah,
I
his
am, like you say, St. Louis had an effect on you. Pick to bring Tasha in. How big of a fan I am of not movie Nacho Libre has a big effect on my pick here. But I think Mike had a great chance of winning that game, and he gets a couple of votes at final.
yeah, he gets a couple of votes to win. And then the past couple of years since then, as the season has aged a little bit, his stock amongst the fan base has risen. People have kind of the appreciation for the game he played has grown a little bit. So that's a really solid pick. And
Absolutely. And but one of, I think, my favorite rewards of all time when they get that clue and Angelina is going idol hunting mad, and Mike knows that he's already a multimillionaire and is more interested in his glass of wine out in Fiji.
Yep. Yep. And White Lotus hadn't even happened yet, which is how everyone knows him now. So
Yeah. I mean,
nice
it'll be
pick.
interesting when he had Angelina and Kara Kay on White Lotus. It'll be interesting to see if there's any castaways make a cameo on season 3 coming up.
That'd be fun. Get Big Tom on there. I don't know why that's the name that popped into my head, but that would be amazing content. So with my fourth male, I am gonna go to someone that played their first season was an old school season, played a really solid game, probably wins if they make it to the end. Unfortunately, did not get picked to go to the end after losing final immunity. Someone that I believe you mentioned on our rivalries episode last summer. Go check that out if you haven't listened to it. And then gets voted to return for 31 and second chances. And ultimately, I feel like still didn't get a second chance in a way. And that's Terry Deeks, because on second chances, he ends up getting pulled from the game because one of his children had a serious medical scare. So
yeah, that's an excellent
who knows what happens with
pick.
Cambodia if that doesn't happen.
He was dominant physically. Yeah, dominant physically in Panama. Probably at that point was like the first. Yeah, he was the first one in kind of that archetype that's just like old school outdoors man, older guy that is living his dream when he was younger of being able to do it, but then actually at the same time is also really good at the physical and the strategic portion of this game. He found the first immunity idol that was on exile, which
Yeah.
is interesting. I always faulted his social game a bit, where he falls down a bit in my rankings. I'm I was definitely team a couple of other people. One's Uris, another one might show up in my pick very soon. But um us in relation to how that family visit played out, but overall a great player.
Yeah, he didn't handle the family visit well, but overall, I still feel like if he gets to the end, he probably wins. But Aris and Danielle are both great also. I would have been happy with any of those three. And so, yeah, who's your next pick? And I have a guess now after you just said that, but
I think I just gave it away. But I'm picking Danielle Di Lorenzo here. Panama, second place. Wins final immunity to blindside Terry out of the, well, not really blindside, but to vote Terry out of the game at the end. Wins fire against Suri. So it was like coming into that final, everybody predicted Terry or Suri would win, and Danielle single handedly dispatched both of them on day 37 and 38. She then plays again as a villain in season 20, where she's in that like younger female group that Russell loves working with every season and thinks he can beat and he can't, and goes very far, not as far as say Parvati did, but she's a winner, so she's not eligible for this, even though she didn't win that game. But overall, one of the better old school females probably at the game in that first 20 seasons. What do you think?
I think I don't know why she was branded a villain for 20. Like, that makes no sense to me.
You're right. What I think it kind of is I think that they were playing around with it to try to separate some people. Like they didn't want, I don't know if it was Parv, Amanda, and Suri together or Parv and Candace. Like I think there was too many Parvati connections on the heroes, so they shifted it around. It has to do with when Corinne didn't play.
Yeah, but
So Corinne and Natalie Bolton both ended up. Natalie was the alternate. Corinne got cut after she had work commitments and dropped out.
yeah.
So there was a bit of tribe messing around there, but I overall it worked out well for Danielle in that game.
It did work out well for her. I just don't think of her as a villain. And if you watch Cook Islands and you watch the way Candace handles the mutiny, and you watch the conversations the way she talks to Jonathan Penner after he flips back to I2, I really don't think of Candace as a hero either. So that delineation was a little weird, but Danielle's an incredible
And
player.
that's what I think I'm kind of getting at is I think that they wanted to have
Yeah.
the two of them flipped, and then they decided, oh, we don't want to put Pove and Candace together on another tribe, so we'll flip Danielle and Candace. But that's just what I think I've seen online years ago.
I mean, that makes sense. But yeah, Danielle's an incredible player. Sent home Cerie and Fire, sent home Terry, voting the one villainous ish thing she did after making an agreement to go to the final two with Terry, voted him out. So maybe that's it. But I
Probably.
really like that pick from you.
What a great strategic play, nonetheless.
Yeah. So this is going to be my final female pick. I've been thinking about this the past couple rounds because I figure it would come down to this for my last female. I'm debating between two players, and I think I'm gonna, even though I like one better, I'm gonna go with the one that I think is a better player, and I'm gonna go with Stephanie LaGrossa over Sierra Easton. Stephanie, somebody who didn't go super far in the post merge her first season in Palau, but I mean, her pre merge tribe got whittled down all the way to just her. So to me, the fact that she wasn't the merge boot, and I don't think was the second boot after the merge either, is as impressive as it's gonna get when production allows you to get into that situation. There was no way she was gonna be allowed to get far in the merge with what was allowed to happen to Oolong. Comes back for Guatemala, and you and me did a Guatemala episode about the Danny versus Steph debate, so we don't need to go into that. But her and Rafe together as a duo absolutely ran Guatemala. She played incredible there, and ultimately didn't really live up to her first two seasons in Heroes versus Villains. But her first two seasons earned her this draft pick for me over Sierra, who I still think is an incredible player.
Yeah, good pick. Both of them are incredible players. Um, I really like that Stephanie pick. We did have that debate, but she would have been just as worthy of a winner. You could go either way in Guatemala.
I agree.
Palau, Palau. I mean, Oolong is Oolong. What else can you say?
Yeah,
Hashtag worst tribe ever. But
yeah. The thing that annoys me is we've seen that's the only time we've seen that happen where they let it get down to just one. Like with Philippines, we see Matt Singh get down to two, but they dispersed it enough to where like the two of them still had it. Malcolm and Denise obviously still had a chance. One of them won, one of them finished fourth. By letting Oolong get all the way down to just Stephanie, you really don't give her a chance in the post merge at all. Like the fact that she wasn't merge boot is insanely impressive.
yeah, I agree.
So
And yeah, going that far, I mean, I'm sure it makes sense to a point because if you're Karor, you're at the same time as yes, you want to be merge boot, but you could make a merge boot, but you're also playing Survivor. And the point of playing Survivor is to vote people out. And when you win the whole way to the merge, you've got to wonder what tensions were just building up in that camp.
yeah, and if she had somehow made it to the end, though, she sweeps the jury, I would think, with that story.
I think so. And those when I say what tensions that are coming up, if we ever end up doing a Palau episode, maybe in the next off season, and that like bringing back our debate, we'll probably get into that. But that's where I say that there were clearly some tensions coming up. I was cheering for Kobe in that season. I'm sure that there were some factions that wanted to get rid of each other within Kuro. So it makes sense to a point too.
Yeah, And like I said, my biggest problem is I just wish production would have thrown a swap in there because even when you get down to just two oolongs with her and Bobby John, there's still a full Karor tribe basically. I think there was a double boot episode where both tribes went to tribal, so 9 Karors. Even just two of them like that aren't going to have a chance. Like, I just really wish we could have gotten a swap in Palau instead of just whittling it down the way they did.
Agreed. It would have made it a much better season.
Yeah.
Uh, you now have one male to pick. I have one of each person of each gender because this is still the ninth round. I cannot believe that you haven't picked this person yet because I thought they would have been gone maybe 4 rounds ago, so I just left them off my draft board. But they're still here, and sometimes in a draft, you're just like, how is the certain player that you want still there at a certain point? So you have to rewrite your draft board a bit, which is what I'm doing now. I'm going with someone who didn't play 39 days, who played almost 26 days, and that's Jesse Lopez.
No. How did he slip my mind? I felt like I was forgetting somebody. Dang. That's really annoying now. Oh well. Yeah, that's a good pick. I wish I had that. Completely
At
slipped my
ninth
mind.
round, probably the best new school non-winner that we've seen. There's some other names that come played good games and come decently close, but not really comparable at this point. Jesse ran his season, and you could see the reaction of the jury when he went home.
Yeah, that's an excellent pick. I love that. I don't really, man, he completely slipped my mind when I was prepping for this. That's a good pick. Okay. Yeah, he played,
So you,
he's the second best player of the new era behind D because D pulled off the win. And kind of like I said with All Stars, but to a lesser extent, like the edit feels less dominant. Anything she wanted to happen happened in 45 all season. So, but yeah, Jesse's a really great pick. That's a really awesome pull by you. I'm upset with myself that he slipped my mind there.
all right, so you're picking a male to round out your team. Just for the audience to know, Bruce's team right now, with him about to make his final pick, is Amanda Kimmel, John Labate, Kelly Wentworth, Russell Hantz, Lauren O'Connell, Colby Donaldson, Tasha Fox, Terry Dietz, and Stephanie LaGrossa. Go ahead with your 10th and final pick.
I was looking to see if I wanted to go off board here, but I'm not thinking of anything, so I'm just gonna go with the name I have written down. Who I I feel like his first season is his best game. He comes back for game changers and plays okay, goes home because JT makes a boneheaded mistake again. And then his second game was Karamoan, because I forgot about that when I was talking just now, and just kind of got on the wrong side of the Cochrane Alliance. But I'm going to go with Malcolm Freeberg here.
I'm going to need to redo my Ally Blindside first boot because his name was on that list.
Yeah.
Great pick. Um, I would say of the kind of like challenge beast archetypes that we see, Malcolm's the best at the game
And
compared to say an Aussie, a Joe.
yeah.
Mike is in there, but he won.
Yeah. And so the thing with Malcolm is he doesn't stand out in my head as just being great strategically, like a Fish
Yeah.
or a Sesternino, but he's just so likable. And you see that come out not only in his interactions with castmates, but even in his confessionals. Like the scene in Game Changers where they find a baby goat and then find its mother. He goes, "Oh, we ended up not eating either of the goats because, we're not heartless," and just is kind of lighthearted like that, even though I'm pretty sure Sandra wanted to eat one of those goats. but
She definitely did.
but yeah, Malcolm is just really great social player. Seems to get along with everyone other than Philip, who most people don't get along with Philip. So at least that's
It's
the
true.
way the edit looked.
No, great pick there. I'm gonna. You all done? Anything? Should I go with my last pick?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So just for the audience, I have Rob C, Fair Play, Celie, Victoria, Stephen Fishback, Andrea, Mike White, Danielle, Jesse, and this final pick. I'm gonna go off board to take one of my favorite players that I think really needs to come back at this point. Someone who didn't win the game, didn't really make it to the end, kind of the middle. But if a couple of things go differently in terms of who the dominant alliance of her season is, makes a really good case that could have won the game, and that's Julia Sokolowski doing it at 18.
Yeah, that's a solid pick. We talked about her on a couple other episodes. For the age she was at the time, played a really good game. Came off to me as being way more mature than the age she actually was, so good for her.
Absolutely. And like, she didn't get to the end because Michelle makes the move of the season to vote out her closest ally. And the fact that they still were Julia supported Michelle when we got to day 39, that's amazing. But if Julia puts herself in a place where, say, tie doesn't flip, and she's sitting in a final with a final three with two of either Jason, Scott, or ties, she's probably a winner.
Yeah, oh, yeah, for sure. A thought just popped into my head that I'm curious about, and this is off topic, but we have time because we don't have a time limit anymore. So you mentioned Michelle voting out her closest ally, and then that ally then still standing by you. Going back to All Stars, if Rob votes out Amber at 3 and goes with Jenna, does he still get Amber's jury vote, or does she stand with the bitterness against him at that point?
I don't know. Because that would depend on how attached Amber was to Rob, and did she would she want to continue the relationship at that point? I
Yeah,
think she probably would vote for him,
yeah.
and they would probably go on a date back when they're in the States and make it all work out. But I also, in my mind, want that to happen because, like, I just saw Rob post this amazing picture of him with his 5 girls. And you don't want to think about the prospect of what if one of them backstabbed the other in the game for $1 million.
By the way, all 4 or 5, I don't remember what it is. I thought it was 4, but I trust you when you say 5. They're all Amber clones.
Counting Amber in there, like, if you
Oh,
see the picture,
yeah.
Amber was with his 4 daughters and Rob's taking a selfie.
All 4 of those daughters, though, are just Amber clones. Like, if you look at them, they all look just like her. It's crazy.
Yes, I know.
All right, cool. So we both have really solid teams. You took twice. You took Fish back when he was my next pick, and then I was looking to go off board, and you said Jesse as I was looking. I'm like, oh crap, that name completely slipped my mind. So I'm kind of annoyed with myself about that. But
But you got a good team.
oh yeah, I love my team. But so a line blindside first boot. Who do you got?
Had to kind of play with this a little bit because I did my align blindside first boot with players that were I never made it before we started because I wanted to do players that were not picked and like my 3 honorable mentions from this. But who I'm gonna go with is from Survivor Fiji, Yao Man,
Huh, that's a good one.
from Survivor Guatemala, Rafe,
Nice.
and from Survivor Vanuatu and Micronesia. I could go with 2 players here, but I used one quite often before. So this time I'm going to go with Amy instead of Eliza.
Huh.
So
So
Amy, Rafe, and Yaman. Those are your choices.
my first instinct is to align with Yao Man, but he was so likable that I feel like I don't stand a good chance against the jury
Both
with him.
seasons. They
Yeah.
loved him coming in on micro even when the game was just starting.
And that's why Cerie's like main target at the beginning was take Yao Man out because she saw right through it. So I don't think I can go to the end with him, but if I blindside him, then everyone's gonna hate me like they did with Dreams. So I'll have to first boot him. Rafe is just too good. I don't want to sit next to him at the end because you saw how good he was in Guatemala. And he was so good that Stephanie almost doesn't get credit for the moves they made together. So I'll blindside him and align with Amy by default because she's the only one left.
Okay, nice. I'm going to align with Amy as well, but I'm going to flip this. I'm going to blindside Yao Man. I think the Dreams comparison might not work out exactly as we thought because that was a little different circumstances than just a classic blindside. There was a $50,000 truck involved.
I mean, yeah, but I'm still not risking it.
Yeah. And then that leaves me to first boot Rafe. Rafe's exit confessional on day 38 just makes me not want him on my jury. I
Yeah.
the You could tell that he got taken out by Denny. And yes, he was close with Stephanie the whole time. He would have probably voted for Stephanie anyway. That's fine. But the fact that he just right away, seconds after being voted out, says my vote's gonna go for Stephanie and rants of how upset he is with Denny makes me not want to blindside him because that might turn out badly.
Okay, but his vote going to Stephanie also kind of makes sense because the two of them played together
Perfect
the entire
sense.
time.
It makes 100% sense.
So the three I'm going to give you are two names that were on my list that I didn't pick, and then one name that just popped into my head. So you've got Sierra Easton Moret, who I was debating between her and Stephanie for my last pick. Taj Johnson George, who is also on my list, and Cassidy Clark from 43, who just popped into my head.
It's really good picks on all there. I am going to, with that, align with Cassidy. She was high up on my list too, but just didn't make the cut. Also, in addition to Survivor, loved watching her play the challenge recently.
Yep.
Um, that leaves me to. This is tough. I think I'm gonna blindside Sierra. Only again, I go back to that voting confessional. It was that like exit confessional when just like I said about Rafe, Taj instantly says I'm gonna vote for Aaron.
Yeah.
And it makes me nervous about blindsiding her, so I have to take her out first, even though she was high up on my list too. Another great player that didn't get picked. And that leaves me to blindside Sierra, who I think would probably be a bit more of a gamer on the jury as opposed to an emotional player.
Yeah. And you're right. Cassidy was awesome on season 2 of Challenge USA. And this memory just popped into my head. We talked about Cerie on season 1 of The Traders. Stephanie, who was picked, also great on season 1 of The Traders. And poor Stephanie has been beaten by Cerie on 3 different shows now. Survivor Heroes versus Villains, Traders 1, and I believe Snake in the Grass. I never saw Snake in the Grass, but I think I heard Cerie beat her on that one too. But to me, Sierra is probably my favorite player of these three, but I just don't feel comfortable with that being the wagon I'm going to hitch to going to the end because she
Yeah.
kind of the fault to her game is she gets that big move-itis a little bit and gets itchy to just flip the game on its head for no reason and will do anything to do it. And her mom was going anyway, but being that willing to vote your mom out quickly and not have to be talked into it, I don't necessarily trust going to the end as my plan with her that I'll make it there. So I'll blindside her just because, like you said, with Taj, her and Steven and JT were this tight trio the whole time. And as soon as she gets voted out, I'm voting for Erin if she's at the end over either of the two people I just played the whole game with.
Yeah.
Which leads me to align with Cassidy, who's I feel like me and Cassidy would get along well, work together well. And she's proven that just because she gets to the end doesn't mean she'll beat you. So
Great episode.
it was. I like not having a time limit now because I'm pretty sure we've been going over an hour.
Oh, we have. We'll have to do this something similar, maybe again next off season with a different theme, but a same long style draft.
Yeah, this is great. And so follow us on YouTube, subscribe, like, comment, and Apple Podcast, Spotify, rate, review, and find us on Facebook and Instagram. Bye, guys. Have a great week.
New coaches and head back to camp. Bye.